Bort? Oh, come on, Bort?
Mommy, buy me a license plate!
No, come along, Bort.
Are you talking to me?
No, my son is also named Bort.
Hello, and welcome to the Bort Experience, a Simpsons podcast. I'm your host, Cody Galat. Today we are on episode 6, Moaning Lisa, written and directed by Al Jean and Mike Reese. Written by Al Jean and Mike Reese and directed by Wesley Archer. I just wanted to double check one thing. Yes, okay. I was missing some information from my notes. But first, I want to say thank you and welcome to the show if you've never been here before. I just, as of this recording, I'm up to 104 subscribers. I think last episode I was around like 87. So I've gained a lot of subscribers. I want to thank everyone that has joined me on the podcast. And please check out my other videos on the channel. I do a lot of like kind of parody type news headlines, and then also I'm thinking about doing other kind of show podcasts like this one just under the Noob News Network banner. So I appreciate it, and without further ado, let's jump into the episode. Oh, and unfortunately I do not have a new Simpsons shirt, so we've gone back to the very first one, but it's a cool one, and hopefully I'll get more in the future, but we're still on the road to 800 shirts for every episode of The Simpsons. Okay, so the overview for Moaning Lisa. First, we have the chalkboard gag, I Will Not Initiate a Revolution by Bart. And then we have the Simpsons pile into the couch. Maggie pops up into the air and Marge catches her. A fun fact, this is also the couch gag used in the Simpsons arcade game, which is a fantastic game that I've kind of mentioned on a previous podcast episode. But I think I'm going to have a special episode eventually where I either do a deep dive or like, kind of my favorite Simpsons games, because there's some really fun ones out there. Even the ones that are kind of like okay or harder are a lot of fun. And it's sad that they shut down Tapped Out because there's no, new Simpsons games on the horizon as far as I know. But there's some great ones in the past, so I would love to have an episode, and let me know down in the comments what are some of your favorite games as well. So the overview of the episode: Lisa becomes depressed, which begins to affect her performance in school. Neither Marge nor Homer are able to make Lisa happier. One night she hears a distant jazz music and sneaks out of her room to follow it. She meets Bleeding Gums Murphy, who teaches her how to express her music through the saxophone. When Marge drops Lisa off at school the next day, she suggests that Lisa smile no matter how she feels. However, Marge sees that Lisa is being denied her creativity and realizes this is what is disappointing her. Marge tells Lisa to just be herself, and the entire family go to see Murphy perform at the local jazz club. So that's kind of like the high-level thought, synopsis of the episode, and I'll kind of jump into my thoughts. I thought it was another great episode. This first season, a lot of the episodes have been fantastic, and this is definitely why it's the golden era for sure. And it just starts off really well with depression, another episode that kind of deals with depression, especially in kids in school. And I think a lot of people can relate to this. Maybe you were depressed at one time when you were in school, or even now in life. And sometimes it's hard to talk to your parents or friends or even siblings about this, because for whatever reason they don't understand. I've met people that I don't know if they've never been depressed before, but when you do have depression, it can be very debilitating, and it just like sucks all energy and life out of you. And this episode tackles it really well. I really love the scenes where it kind of does a flashback, or actually it's like a dream, but it's a flashback of Marge when she was a kid and her mom telling her, hey, kids who smile, that means they have great moms. And later in the episode, Marge says, push all your feelings down past, your stomach down to your feet. And eventually you'll get invited to parties and be popular and have all the things out of life. And when you hear this, you're like, oh man, this is so horrible and sad for Marge. But then when Lisa, is going into for the recital, she's smiling, and some of the kids are like, oh, we always thought you were weird, but now that you're smiling, you must be great. You want to come over and do my homework? And the band teacher is like, oh, we're not going to have any creativity from you, right? And then Marge like gets triggered by this because all the creativity and any kind of emotion she ever felt as a child was suppressed by her parents and her surroundings, and she doesn't want that to happen to Lisa. And she grabs her and pretty much says, hey, be your authentic self. And it was a beautiful moment, and I feel like a lot of people in their lives want an advocate like that, where hey, just because you're depressed or you feel a certain way or you express yourself that's different from other people doesn't mean that you're weird or should be shunned by society. It just means, hey, you should be able to be yourself. And for me personally, I really felt I was able to be myself once I exited high school and was in college and then post college. And I was like, hey, I was a closeted nerd for most of my younger life because I didn't want to it was something like you just didn't talk about, like, oh, I like anime, I like cartoons, I like video games. Video games were a little iffy. It's like, oh, as long as you play like sports games you're fine. But so it was always kind of scary. But now I can, once I got out of high school and kind of went to college, and then you kind of get separated from those people you see every day for 8 hours, you kind of can find your actual people and find people. I've had groups of friends that we play like Pathfinder or D&D, or we talk about Star Wars, or I have online communities where we talk about all kinds of things and comment. And I feel like it's so freeing once you are able to be yourself and aren't afraid that you're going to be judged by the people that are supposed to be your friends. And honestly, if you're getting judged a lot by your friends, they're probably not really your friends to begin with, because friends should be able to accept you for how you are. I also thought the introduction of Bleeding Gums Murphy was fantastic. I know he pops up in a few other episodes, maybe only one or two more, but he's one of those great side characters that really helps Lisa channel her, depression and like what she's feeling through music. Me personally, I'm not really a big music person. I enjoy music in terms of like within like movies and TV shows. But I know it's kind of weird. Most people like music is a part of their life, but I don't really. When I go in a car, I usually listen to podcasts or audiobooks, and it's just how I like to enjoy. Sound is more, talking or auditory, not necessarily music all the time. I haven't turned on my radio, I think, in my car in like years, probably like 5 years, honestly. So the only time I really listen to music is when I'm riding with my wife, who does like, to listen to music like most people. I think I'm kind of like an outlier there. But I like how in the episode, at least, I never played a musical instrument, obviously, just with not my, I'm more of the artistic. I like to draw and stuff more than on the music side. But I feel like she was able to channel her depression into the music, and then with her mom being able to accept her, at least someone, that really kind of helped her be able to move past, maybe not fully, but just be able to feel accepted and be like, hey, it's okay to be sad sometimes. I can use my music, I can lean on my mom and be able to get through this a difficult time. And the Bleeding Gums Murphy character, I think, really is a great one of those great side characters in the show, and we'll get several more. But it has a very emotional core of like what he's trying to present. Even if he thinks, hey, you're only in second grade and most of your problems aren't really real problems, but I still accept you and you can still express yourself, even if maybe other people have bigger problems than you. And the thing that you kind of learn in therapy is never compare traumas or what you're going through, because someone else might be going through something that you think is not that big of a deal, but to them it could be the biggest deal in the world. It's sometimes hard not to do that, but I feel like I try to understand people where they're coming from, and comparing is never the way to go. At least what I've kind of learned from my experience going through therapy and everything. Let's see. And then I guess the only other kind of two things I really thought were interesting is when Lisa is kind of trying to explain to her mom and dad like why she's depressed, or she just thinks like, what's the point of anything? I feel like sometimes when I was a kid, I would have like conversations, maybe not that depressing sounding, but just like I always asked a lot of questions and wanted to understand why. And sometimes when you talk like that, people you talk to, their eyes glaze over and they're like, what is this guy talking about? Or we don't feel like it's uncomfortable and you kind of try to change the subject with humor or sarcasm. And I feel like that happens a lot in interactions that I've experienced within my life. So it's like I've said before, this show does a really great job of like connecting with people and their experiences. And I'm assuming some of these writers probably have felt that way when they were growing up, where they try to tell their parents something or friends, and they're like looking at them like, what are you talking about? So, or just kind of try to change the subject. And I felt like that was so relatable, and a great scene of like how probably some of you have even experienced life where you're like, you're trying to explain something very profound or just something that's really bothering you, and then the person doesn't really receive that and they think they don't know how to respond. And I'm not saying not everyone's really trained or ready to respond in that kind of way, but I think the best thing is to just try to be there for people, even if you don't fully understand. Just be able to be there for them to be able to talk to you, which Lisa does say, hey dad, thanks for trying type thing, so she at least gives them credit for that. Oh, and then one other thing. I think this is the first episode where there's a really strong B plot. The main plot is Lisa going through her depression, meeting Bleeding Gums Murphy, the jazz club, and her kind of resolution. But the B plot is Homer versus Bart in this video game. I can't remember the exact name of their video game. I think it was like something wrestling, but I like how they do it on the TV. It's like very pixelated, so like kind of like to do like that 8-bit 16-bit kind of graphic, maybe, yeah, I would say that. And it's like kind of the controller looks very similar to like an Atari. It has one joystick and it looks like one button. And I know throughout the show, I think they kind of like upgrade systems, and I'm sure even in the newer seasons they probably have something, maybe even VR or something. I'm not 100% sure, but I like how there's a B plot. And I know like in future episodes, I don't know about this season, but I know within seasons there's always like this kind of B plot going on, and I feel like that's a great way, and a lot of sitcoms do this, where it's like, oh, even though we're not always with the main action, there's like this very interesting side story, and sometimes it can be even more interesting than the main story in television shows. So I love that. Homer goes to an arcade and he's trying to like kind of be like, hey, I need these for my laundry. And the guy's like, sure. And he gets a lot of quarters. And the guy, the attendant at the arcade's like, you really do need to go to the laundry. And Homer's like, yeah, jerk or whatever. And like he goes and he plays this with this kid and gets beat a ton and loses all his money. And the kid's mom comes and says, I told you not to waste your money here. And she like not threatens, but like, says to Homer, like, how dare you? What kind of adult would come and just waste their money at an arcade? And he just kind of like leaves and says, oh, my wife's calling me. But he learns these skills, and right as he's about to beat Bart finally, Marge unplugs the TV and says this is important. And then Lisa kind of has this like, hey, we're going to go to the jazz, and, I'm not as sad anymore. So I thought it was excellent, and I'm glad they kind of introduced that element where it's like you get really excited for the episode because you never know where it's going to go. And I feel like a lot of shows kind of do this now, where it's like you think it's going one way, but then the story goes a complete opposite way, or there's like some kind of gag or some kind of element that you think is going to be the main point, and then it's not, and maybe it's a side point, maybe it's just there for joke's sake. So it kind of keeps you on your toes of like where the episode's going to be going. All right, in the next segment, we have the Citizens of Springfield. In this segment, I list off the cast and which characters they play. So we have Dan Castanella as Homer Simpson, Julie Carvener as Marge Simpson, and Jacqueline Bouvier, which is her mom. I think in later seasons, we might see her. She's kind of like a lot older, of course, and I think she changes her voice slightly because on these, it sounded just like her. And I don't know if that was because it was a dream sequence / flashback as well. We have Nancy Cartwright as Bart Simpson and boy number 1. We have Yardley Smith as Lisa Simpson. We have Harry Shearer as Mr. Largo, news announcer and clerk. We have Hank Azaria as Mo Sizlak. We have Susan Blue as Howie and boy number 2. We have Miriam Flynn as Mrs. Barr. We have Pamela Hayden as Janie Powell, boy with Howie and Howie's mother. And then we have Ron Taylor as Oscar Bleeding Gums Murphy. And when I looked it up, Ron Taylor unfortunately passed away in 2002. which I believe, I don't know if it's this season or a future season. Like I know it's not this season, but I know in a future season, Bleeding Gums Murphy does pass away. But I think the actor is still alive when he like films that, as far as I remember. But R.I.P. to a great Simpsons character. So next section we have MVP of the episode, and of course I have to give it to Lisa. In the book that I've mentioned several times on different episodes, Stupid TV Be More Funny, by Alan Siegel, when he did a podcast and they said who is their favorite Simpsons, a lot of the people on that Ringer podcast episode that kind of inspired me to read the book and then do this podcast were saying their favorite character was Lisa. And when I was a kid, I think I always gravitated towards Homer and Bart. And this is a really great spot for Lisa to shine. And I think you kind of know why maybe a lot of like people that were maybe more studious, maybe more nerdy type people would gravitate towards Lisa. And I'm looking forward to kind of seeing her character develop more, because this was the first episode. She's only had like a couple lines in the other episodes so far. This was like an episode focused like so much on her, even with the B plot. And I think it kind of is fantastic, really opened up the character and just kind of proves like, oh, this character is not just a foil to Bart or just the kind of nerdy, annoying, like sister kind of type character like they had her in the previous episodes. I think this really gave her so much character and what she feels and what she thinks, and I think it's a fantastic episode. Also a little small shout out to Marge. You think maybe she's gonna like just let it push down all your emotions, but she kind of came back, and I feel like that is such a powerful thing, and I think that shows kids like, hey, this is what I want or hope my parents will do for me and be my advocate, in which they should be. And always try to support your kids as best you can. But Lisa definitely MVP, but a supporting, very good supporting award for Marge on this episode. The best jokes, I had two, and I usually have more than one because the show, each episode usually has so many good jokes. But the best joke that I had was from Bleeding Gums Murphy. He says, quote, "The blues isn't about feeling better. It's about making other people feel worse and making a few bucks while you're at it." I thought this was a great explanation of what jazz is and what his thought process is on it. I thought it was a great line. One of the reasons why I think he's such a great character. He has a very good like one-liners throughout the episode. And then the only other joke I wanted to mention was, it's not really necessarily a lot of words, but it's when Bart and Lisa are fighting over Maggie, who Maggie loves the best. Maggie's kind of on the couch. She kind of hops down and she's looking to Bart and she's looking to Lisa, and they're doing that whole like, come on, like almost like a dog, come here boy, come here girl, type thing. And Lisa kind of gives up because she's still in her depressed state and says, just go to Bart. And Bart's like, yeah, because you love me more. And instead she crawls, which is right in the middle, like right in front of her, the TV, and kind of hugs it. And I feel like this is such a great commentary, especially if anyone does have kids. As soon as they see a screen, they are so like laser focused on that. We try to limit our son's screen time, but sometimes I don't feel like he's too worried about the phones per se, but he likes, because we'll put on like Miss Rachel or Daniel Tiger or some other, most of the time we try to do educational, but sometimes we'll even do like Disney movies with the songs and everything like that. And if we turn that off, he's not happy. But we try not to reward the behavior of like, hey, if you cry, you get the TV. But just from a parent, I'm sure other parents out there can attest, like, man, kids, they get to that screen, and I think it doesn't help that like most adults are probably on their phones like so many hours a day anyway, not only for work, but just that's just how society is now. But I thought it was a great joke and a great commentary even to this day, even from the 90s, that that's still so prevalent, that kids and adults are so glued to their TVs and phones. All right, and then our next section will have some trivia. So let's see. Oh, I thought this was a good one. So here's the question. When Ned Flanders started his own store, he quit his job as what? We have the options of barber, pharmacist, or security guard. And funny thing is, I don't know what season this is, but I think his shop is called the Leftporium, and it's just a bunch of left-handed, items. And some things make sense, like, oh, left-handed scissors and left, like golf clubs or something like that. But then I remember, if I remember correctly, it'd be like left-handed pencils or like, and you're just like, what? So it's kind of like very funny that he has this store. But I'll read the question and we'll have the answer. When Ned Flanders started his own store, he quit his job as what? A barber, a pharmacist, or a security guard? The answer is pharmacist. So I don't know if we ever see him as a pharmacist. I'm assuming that episode, whatever season it happens, we get to kind of know maybe what he did before. And I think not since the holiday special, we haven't gotten Ned Flanders, which he comes into the show so much. Oh, and before we wrap up, I wanted to say, I'm still trying to get it. I kind of moved to the opposite corner of where I used to be. That used to be my corner right there, where I used to do the episodes. But now we're over here. We have a bookshelf and everything. I'm still trying to get it organized, but we have some Star Wars stuff, but some Simpsons stuff, so we're getting there. But let me know what you think of the new setup. Also, thank you so much for all the subscribers. I mentioned this at the top. I'm really trying to grow the YouTube channel, really focus on it, try to come out with content, either shorts every day and then this weekly podcast. Also, I have plans to hopefully do maybe King of the Hill. We'll see. I think I'm going to do it. It's just, finding the time and everything. But please subscribe, please comment and like, and then tell me, if you've ever been depressed and how were you able to like communicate this with either your family or your friends, and is there some techniques that you do to kind of help you get out of that state of mind? But until next time, peace out.